Well, in the second episode, we have a new intro, new characters were introduced, and this spacebug problem is becoming a much bigger problem than we thought. Hey guys, Cameron from BrainDead, Season 1, Episode 2, Playing Politics or Living Life in the Shadow of a Budget Showdown, a Critic, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I overall really enjoyed the premiere. I thought it was a lot of fun, and really was just really different. I haven't really seen a lot of shows constructed like BrainDead before, and this episode continued that weirdness. Not only that, but it did build a lot of things. We introduced you to some new characters, we figured out more what's going on with these space bugs, and we had some really great, just really fun scenes overall. I'm really enjoying the show, but I first want to talk about, I think, one of the coolest things the show does, which is the idea to have them sing the recap rather than speak it to you. It's just so weird, and it feels perfect with the show. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it doesn't go with the show because it's not a musical. That's the point, guys. The point is that the show is not a musical, and that's why it's so damn weird, but it's hilarious. I love it, and the way that he's able, the guy who's doing it, I don't know who's doing it, I know that he is like a professional comedian or whatever, but whoever's doing it is just killing it in that song. It's so funny and so weird as well, and he did such a great job with it. It really added to just everything with the show. It showed that this really isn't a show you're supposed to take too seriously, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a very good way to start things off. But then we get to the actual beginning of the episode, which definitely, like I said, I think that recap alone is enough of a reason for me to stick around every week, because I'm definitely going to be looking forward to seeing how he sings the recap, you know, how it's going to change, maybe do a different genre of music, that kind of thing. Gallivant did do this, but here's the thing, Gallivant was a musical. This isn't a musical, so to me, that makes it even better, because, you know, this is just completely unexpected. You never expect him to do that, and I think it's really cool the way to do that. It's really funny, and really goes with the awkward and weird tone of the show. But let's just get into it with the actual beginning. We see Laurel's at home listening to a newscast about the Democrat government shutdown. She sprays for bugs, but discovers that it doesn't stop the bugs coming into her apartment. In fact, nothing seems to be stopping them. She stomps on them and they keep coming. She quickly leaves. The remaining bugs eat their dead comrades, and again, we don't know why these bugs are here, what their mission really is, but for whatever reason, they just can't seem to get rid of them. And at the Capitol, we see Scarlett, who clearly is infected by the space bugs, is berating a waiting FBI agent, Anthony Onofrio, about his being a godless Republican and wants to know why they're trashing the Constitution. Laurel comes in. Anthony has to speak to her. He questions Laurel about what happened to Daudier in the ambulance, and Anthony hasn't seen the body, and Laurel explains that Daudier's head exploded, and he suggests that it might be about terrorism, but Laurel disagrees. Luke watches as Anthony goes, tells Laurel afterward that Anthony likes her, and she isn't convinced, and Scarlett reminds Luke that he has a caucus meeting, and as they talk, Scarlett munches noisily on a plate of salad, and that's something else that you know they're infected, they do. They chew with their mouth open, and Laurel asks her brother if something is up with his assistant. Luke dismisses it as nothing, suggests that Laurel go home and get some rest, but she insists on working. She can tell that there's definitely something going on. He asks his sister to meet with 2 constituents, and keep them happy, and basically that's what, he needs her to do. That was a very good way to start the episode. Really showed, how naive all the characters are and how Laurel's not naive. I definitely really did enjoy that. So Laurel then meets with this little girl, Annie, and her father, Hank. Annie has cancer, and they're raising money for research, and they want to visit the Lincoln Memorial to complete their 20 Monument fundraiser. It's closed because of the shutdown, and Park Service won't make an exception. Laurel says that she'll have Luke look into it, because again, Luke isn't going to close this deal because of what happened with Gareth and everything, but at lunch, Laurel tells Luke about Annie. He warns that they can't help all their constituents, and advises Laurel to only feel if it makes her effective. And Luke then asks if Laurel's in touch with Gareth. When she confirms that he keeps calling her, Luke asks Laurel to come to doublespeak where he's on with Red, and he wants Laurel to let Gareth apologize and find out what Republican was demoted to make room for Spitz. And Luke points out that Gareth used her, and it's her turn to use him back, and warns that he's in danger of losing his job because, again, they said that Gareth, was not a freelancer. He was not freelancing them or anything like that, but now he thinks he might be a freelancer, and he might be trying to get him out of the job. So we see on doublespeak, neither Luke nor Red take the blame for the shutdown. Red at this point is just talking so much nonsense, and Tony Shalhoub, I think, was a lot better in this episode. I'm still not really into this character, but I still really like what they did with him here. Host Claudia Monarch points out that people want them to work together. Luke insists it's a temper tantrum, and in the green room, Gareth tries to talk to Laurel. She reminds him that he was going behind her back to steal Spitz, and Gareth says that Red changed his mind, and that it was Red that did this. Remember, Gareth really is, Red's campaign sponsor, and Laurel accepts his apology. Gareth says that he didn't apologize. She asks Gareth there, the Republicans give Spitz a chairmanship and PAC money, and Gareth refused to comment. He then asks if she's going to tax prom, which is a prom run by tax lobbyists, which that in general is so weird, but just so good, and it's really clever stuff like that that's really made me enjoy the show. I mean, it's so different, but so weird, but that's one of the things that's really making the show as good as it is stuff like that. So, in the studio, the cameras are off. Red asks Luke why the Democrats are being so stubborn. He says that he'll lay out their offer at Tortilla Night tomorrow at 9 a.m., assures Luke that it'll be good, and once he leaves, Laurel tells Luke that Gareth didn't say anything, and Luke is happy that she's going to tax prom, and Laurel reminds him to get Annie into the Lincoln Memorial, and basically, you know, that's their plan. They have to get her there, and in the park, we meet a new character, Gustav Triplets, and probably one of my favorite introductions for a character on the show so far. I just love the way this was done. It was so subtly hilarious, and I really did love that. We see Gustav Triplet is playing speed chess against several opponents simultaneously and winning. One of his opponents hasn't made a move, and Gustav notices that he's bleeding from the ear, and the way that it just took him so long to notice, I thought was pretty funny. He's like, alright, move. I mean, it was so hilarious, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, call 911. I just love that. It's so subtle, it's so funny, and I really do love that. And he calls 911, take Oscar to the hospital, and as they give Oscar a CAT scan, he screams that they're in his head. The nurse tells Gustav to distract Oscar. Gustav goes in, tries to discuss chess, and Oscar keeps screaming that they're in his head. His head then explodes, and basically we can tell that obviously Oscar is now, the space bugs are in his head as well. I mean, we could tell when his ear was bleeding, but his head now explodes, and the space bugs are taken over, and just a really fun scene. I like the way that's done. And that's the way they did it. You know, Dr. Dottie last week, I thought was way too serious, and this is really how they should do it. Just make it fun. That's totally the way they should do it at scenes like this. So we go to tax prom, which again is just ridiculous, but it really does give us a chance to see these characters just interact. And the tax lobbyist in charge thanks everyone for coming, announces their triumphs, and the DJ cranks up the music. Everyone applauds. Laurel comes in, notices a woman staring at her. A woman, Stacy Zara, comes in, hugs her friend Laurel, and Laurel and Stacy clearly are friends. She says she's working for roll call, making some money, and says that their friend Abby Summers has changed a lot. And Stacy takes Laurel to Abby, who says that work center, and it's clear that Abby is also infected. You can definitely tell. She now works for Help America Rise Again, a right-wing group, and Laurel's surprised that her friend is now Republican because she was Democrat before, now she's Republican. And Abby insists that the literature makes sense. She was going to write a novel, but doesn't see the point when the American dream is under attack. And Abby steps away to take a call. Stacy says she thought Abby rebelled against her Republican parents, and Laurel finds Gareth, invites her to drink. She wants a drink instead, and basically, you can definitely tell there's something off about Abby, just the way she acts, definitely, it's not normal. And at home, Gustav is researching exploding head syndrome. He takes samples of brain matter from Oscar's coat and examines them, because he knows, obviously, this isn't normal. He knows there's definitely something going on. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but you definitely do get the sense that eventually these two are going to meet up. I like that they kept this separate in this episode. I like that Gustav stuff was separate. If he would have met Laurel in this episode, I think things would have been a bit convoluted, and I like that the show is, you know, doing that, pacing that slowly, because yeah, they do have some time to do that. Yes, they only have 10 episodes, but they do have time for these two to meet up, and I'm sure they're going to meet up in the next episode, but in this episode at least they don't meet. I like seeing that. So at the bar, Laurel tells Gareth that things have changed. They start arguing left versus right, and then DC versus LA, and Gareth steps aside to take a call from Red about the Republican. They shoved aside to make room for Spitz. He writes down a phone number, and Laurel makes note of it. She then goes to the bathroom and dials it, ends up calling the office of Senator Barnecki, who we don't know who this is, and Laurel braced herself by reminding herself that Gareth used her, and then calls Luke and gives him Barnecki's name. Luke says that he's on it and helping Annie. Laurel goes out, invites Gareth to dance, and he accepts, not knowing that they're basically trying to sabotage what's going on with him. I like the way that's going, I like the way they're kind of scheming against each other, and then the next thing we meet yet another new character. Now, actually, one of the reasons I was most looking forward to the show, like I said, is the cast, and one of those being Nikki M. James. I'm not a fan of her. I'm going to say that right now. I'm not a fan of Nikki M. James because of the fact that I don't like her as Eponine in Les Mis. I think that I don't like her in that role. I'm sure if you guys can see Nikki M. James, she's not my favorite Eponine, but she is a good actress. I definitely will say it. She's a good actress. She's just not really much of a singer to me, but she did a really great job in this episode. Laurel meets a woman, Rochelle Daudier, and Rochelle is, Daudier's daughter, and Rochelle, as what happened to her father, points out that she is a resident at Mount Vernon, and there's nothing in the blood powerful enough to open a cranial gap. She seems to not believe any of this. You know, she wants the truth, as her father said anything before he died. Laurel tells her that he said that they were inside of him. They don't know what they were. You know, we know it's bugs, but they don't. And Rachel shows her a parasagittal scan of a health cranial cavity. She also has a scan of Oscar's brain, and it shows unusual patterns of activity. And the nurse did a second CAT scan, discovers that the patterns moved, and then his head just exploded. So we're starting to get more of an idea of what's going on, how this all is set up, things like that. But the next morning, Luke and Ella meet with Red. Red talks about how he stopped drinking, and then says that they want commerce, education, and energy eliminated. And if the Democrats cut them, then they'll agree to a budget deal. Luke and Ella realize that he's serious, and it's really crazy what he's saying. I mean, what he's proposing is ridiculous. And as they leave, the two Democrats figure that the Republicans have gone off the deep end, and they can use it. And again, I love that the Democrats just think, all right, this is typical Republicans. They're crazy and everything, and the Republicans think the same with the Democrats. Gustav is then taking continuous photos of the brain sample and then plays back the photos. He sees a bug moving across the sample, realizes that something is seriously wrong. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows that there obviously is something going on, and this is not normal. So at his office, Anthony asks assistant Grace about overheated blood. His new assistant Butch informs him that Grace was furloughed and he's Anthony's new temp, and he ushers Laurel in. Anthony hastily cleans up his cubicle. Laurel tells Anthony that someone else died like Dottier did and suggests that Anthony speak to Rochelle, because Rochelle is obviously Dottier's daughter, and the agent gives Laurel his cell phone number so she can call him directly. Luke is on the TV with Annie, using her as a political prop to highlight the shutdown, basically, because obviously the shutdown happened, and furious Laurel visits Luke, complains about what he's doing because this isn't right at all, and says that he does care, but he wants to win it all for Annie's, and Laurel doesn't buy it, walks out, that he's not interested. She basically walks out, and I like that Laurel, even though she's not really a fan of politics, and Luke points this out too, that she's really good at what she's doing. She really knows how to handle politics. She seems to really know what she's doing, and I definitely really did like that. So Gareth and Red are watching the newscast. Red says that they neutralized the issue. He refuses to take Annie to the Lincoln Memorial because that's the old way, and Red tells Gareth to bring him a knife. Laurel, Stacy, and Abby then have a girls' night, and however, Abby is busy on the phone and then comes over. She says that she's on a cleanse and doesn't want any wine, and she starts talking about this editorial in the Wall Street Journal. Now, what this is, we don't know. Laurel asks about her novel, and Abby claims that it wasn't very good, and she needed the money, and she says she doesn't like how the Democrats treat the opposition like they're insane, and points that she doesn't have a family to pay for her debts like Laurel does, and Abby breaks into tears, says she has to get home, and walks out, and you don't know if she's acting out just because the bugs are in her, if this is actually going on. I thought that was definitely really interesting the way that was done, but I do like the way we are starting to see, that this the bug thing, it doesn't just make you crazy, it makes you also really emotional. I like the way that that's going. I definitely thought there was a lot of, I definitely really did enjoy it. That was really good. And basically, Luke and Elda meet with Barnecki, try to get him to switch sides. They promise that they'll get him a better office, the gavel, and $12 million in PAC money. And a short time later, Luke returns to his office to tell Laurel that they succeeded, and Scarlett says that Laurel isn't there, and Luke tells her that they've got Barnecki to switch, and she stares at him, smiling, and they again end up in bed, showing that the affair is continuing. Even though Scarlett is infected, it's still continuing. Luke continues boasting about flipping Barnecki and says that they're having a press conference in the morning to announce it. She hesitates when Luke kisses her, tells him to kiss her, and however, Scarlett still doesn't respond, but claims that it feels so good. So that's really weird that she doesn't seem to like it, and Luke says they don't have to do it, but Scarlett says that they should continue, glances over at the open window, and the way that she's getting him to, manipulate against his wife and everything, he figures that Laurel talked to Scarlett about his wife, made her feel guilty, leaves at Scarlett, yells that she wants him now, and I mean, I kind of like what's going on here. It is getting a little silly, I definitely will say that, but it's meant to be silly, definitely, it's meant to be silly, so it works for me, and anything on the show that feels silly, it's meant to be, so I think that works, and I do like where this goes. So we do get a very good scene, after, what happens when Luke finds out. So, Laurel is at home watching videos of Abby partying when she was younger. She calls Abby, gets her voicemail, asks her to call so she can apologize, and Luke arrives, asks what Laurel said to Scarlett. Laurel says she didn't say anything, and he tells her to leave Scarlett alone. She realizes that Luke is sleeping with her again. Luke quickly leaves, and he's really upset that she said anything, but honestly, Laurel was just trying to do the right thing, and the next day, the news is writing a story, and this is just ridiculous, but I love it. I think it's hilarious. The news writing a story about how rumors have surfaced that Hank is teaching classes that Lincoln was gay, and Red laughs laughs in triumph, calls Gareth in to congratulate him, and apparently this was all Red's doing. He was the one that did this, and again, it's not really Red, it's the bugs in his mind, they're telling him to do this, and Laurel and Luke are watching the news, which is running up a follow piece on how Hank and Annie sued to keep the Pledge of Allegiance out of their school. It's just ridiculous stuff, really, but again, it kind of shows, you know, why things are so crazy and things like that, and I thought that was definitely just really weird overall the way that's going, and again, really weird stuff like that works really well in the show, I definitely will say that. So Red then hugs Gareth, thanks him for getting a weapon used against Annie. Barnecki comes on the news and says that Luke tried to get him to switch sides, condemns the Democrats for switching sides, because clearly there's something going on there. The way that obviously they just randomly switch sides. He doesn't understand why Luke tried to get him to switch sides because he is a Republican and Luke tried to make him a Democrat, and Luke figures that Laurel was played and she visits to see Gareth, accuse him of feeding her misinformation. Gareth points out she didn't have to steal the information, and really, no, she didn't. Laurel storms out, really pissed, obviously, because she did steal information and obviously, you know, she didn't have to. So at the caucus meeting, the senators are blaming Luke. Ella asks to speak, says that she is now calling a vote to remove Luke as whip, and she puts herself forward as a candidate to replace him, and everyone applauds except Luke, knowing that he was demoted. He's obviously really upset. This really ruins his campaign and everything, and, you know, he's really upset about what's going on there. So at the Lincoln Memorial, Laurel goes up to the Park Service officer, Stan Maynard. She claims that she's with Luke's office, but he tells her to move along. Laurel explains about Annie, who's standing nearby with Hank, and Stan gives them 10 minutes inside. She goes in with them and admits that she's never been there. Hank takes a photo of the two of them in front of Lincoln. Annie then reads the inscription, and Laurel wonders why nobody thinks that way anymore, and Annie says that people just need to not give up, and basically that's what's going on. So, back at her office, Laurel starts searching the internet for reports of exploding heads. She sees a blog post by Gustav showing the photo montage of the bug crawling across Oscar's brain sample. Again, you get the sense these two are going to meet up very soon. He asks anybody who has seen a bug like that to contact him because he's never seen anything like it before. Laurel starts to send him an email, and Abby calls, and Laurel apologizes for being out of line. Her friend says that maybe she was just jealous and apologizes, and Laurel's convinced that nothing's really wrong with Abby, that maybe she was just wrong about her, invites Laurel over to tea. Laurel takes her rain text, hangs up, and then I love the way this episode ends because at her home, Abby looks at Stacy's cup of tea. Stacy's in the next room, complains that the bathroom door is locked from the outside, and Abby says they'll be over in a minute, bugs out of the vent, advances, and basically we hear You Might Think in the background. The only time we hear that song, I might add, but the second I heard them, like, yep, Abby's infected. Bugs are out of the vent, advance on Stacy, and in the kitchen, Abby turns up the music to drown out Stacy's screams. It seems like Stacy's about to turn in, you know, she's about to get bugs into her brain, and that is the way the episode ends. Really good stuff overall. Really am enjoying this show, but let's just talk about it overall. So again, really weird episode, but really great overall. I really am enjoying the weird tone of the show. It's really just working in its favor because, like I said, there really is no show like this, and I think it's a lot of fun. We starting to figure out more what's going on with the bugs, how this is all happening. You know, they get inside your brain, they explode your brain, then you are replaced with these bugs, and it's making everyone go crazy. You know, Red's saying a lot of shit, you know, things like that, and, you know, we're pretty sure that Abby also is infected, and now Scarlett seems like is trying to manipulate Luke and Laurel, and if she's there to maybe get Luke and Laurel to turn against each other, it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes, because Scarlett, obviously, you know, Luke really doesn't think anything's off about Scarlett, but I think Laurel definitely does. Laurel knows there's definitely something going on. You can tell that obviously Scarlett's infected. We saw it, you know, it just seems that way. She played You Might Think in the end, so definitely she's infected. We still don't know what the connection to that song is. Why is that song continuously playing? Why is it whenever someone's affected, that song plays? We don't know, but definitely that song keeps playing. I'm looking forward to seeing Laurel and Gustav meeting up, because Gustav, he's doing this in a different way. You know, he's getting it all from the internet. He's trying to figure out really what's going on, while Laurel seems like she's going to, you know, confront him and tell him, you know, the experience that she's seen. This isn't definitely the first one she's seen, because again, he's never seen anything like this before. He feels he's the only one that's happening to, and I'm looking forward to seeing those two meeting up. And the actor that plays Gustav really just, I think he knows the show very well. He knows he can't take things too seriously. He's doing a very good job with that. As far as Abby goes, Abby is infected, and we'll have to see what happens with that. If Laurel's, you know, going to realize that Abby's infected, that's going to be really interesting. As far as Red goes, Red is ruining his campaign at this point. Red is clearly ruining his campaign. He's out there to, you know, doesn't really care what he does, and Gareth is kind of just going along with it because he can't say no. I think that's very interesting. And now Luke is now demoted. He's no longer, you know, whip. We'll have to see what happens with that. Ella's now whip, so that's going to be really interesting to see how that goes, because Luke, obviously, you know, he's no longer in charge. Ella's in charge. What's going to happen there? That's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. As far as Gareth and Laurel go, like I said, there's a lot of tension going on there. I'm looking forward to seeing the way that all works out. And then Rochelle, what is Laurel going to do with Rochelle? Rochelle, I don't really think understands fully what's going on. She knows, obviously, what happened to her father, but she doesn't really understand the extent. And I think that Laurel's going to try to show her what's going on, convince her on how she can stop this whole situation. That's going to be very interesting as well. But overall, guys, let me know if you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. I really enjoyed this episode overall. A lot of fun. This show just overall is really entertaining. I'm really enjoying it. It's the perfect summer show, because summer shows, you can have some really odd shows like this, and this is perfectly the perfect show for summer, in my opinion. But I will see you guys in my next show, which will be for a classic movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.